The Legend of Korra, admittedly, is a series with flaws. Many flaws. However, when talking about what makes Korra bad, you will never hear anyone mention one particular season. Season 3, Change. Following the travesty that is Season 2, Season 3 does more than redeem Korra. It even outclasses its predecessor at times. The first thing you will hear anyone mention when talking about why Season 3 is so remarkable is its villain.
Wait, Zaheer.
Arguably the most adored villain of the entire Avatar universe, Zaheer is captivating in all the right ways. He's bald, handsome, he's an airbender, and he even has a girlfriend that is taller than him, single-handedly breaking the laws of space and time. But the biggest reason why Zaheer is so captivating is his ideology, that is, anarchism. Throughout Korra's 4 seasons, we find villains that can broadly be categorized into political ideologies. Amon was an egalitarian, Zaheer an anarchist, Kuvira a fascist, and Unalaq was, well, Unalaq.
10,000 years of darkness begins.
Easily the most compelling one of the 4 is Zaheer and his version of anarchism. Therefore, to better understand Korra's greatest villain, today we take a deep dive into the political ideology that is anarchism. By understanding the anarchist beliefs, we will be able to answer, what is Zaheer's anarchism? But before we do that, if you're enjoying the video, then make sure to destroy the thumbs up button. Comment what you thought of the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support really makes a difference. Now let's talk some anarchism. So, anarchy is derived from the Greek word anarchia. An meaning without and archaea meaning ruler. Fundamentally, anarchism is defined by not having rulers. In other words, the absence of authority. So the question then becomes, why do anarchists like Zaheer reject political authority? In Robert Paul Wolff's In Defense of Anarchism, Wolff distinguishes between 2 types of authority. On the one hand, there's descriptive authority. Descriptive authority concerns authority based on the acknowledgement by a group of people that certain individuals or institutions have authority within a specific territory. It is essentially a factual observation that a particular group or government has control over a region. For example, people might recognize Kim Jong-un's government as the authoritative ruler over North Korea. Not necessarily because they believe he has a moral right to do so, but because he is simply the one in power. On the other hand, there is prescriptive authority. And this type of authority goes beyond mere acknowledgement of power. It asserts that those in authority have a moral right or a legitimate claim to exercise authority within a territory. Here, the moral obligation to obey the laws and commands of the authority comes from a source of moral legitimacy. Taking the example of North Korea again, if Kim Jong-un would have prescriptive authority, then he would not just factually be the ruler of North Korea. No, he is the actual legitimate authority over the country with a moral right to rule. The key distinction between these 2 different concepts of authority is not whether someone is in power, but whether they ought to be in power. And this is an important distinction to make, as it provides the basis of Zaheer's anarchism. Many people come into positions of authority, I mean that is clear. However, whether these people ought to come into these positions of authority is not. We may obey laws because it is wise to do so, because we acknowledge that someone has authority over us. In fact, sometimes it might even be beneficial for us and others to follow the law. But is there actually any reason to obey the law merely because it is the law? To obey a government and its rules because that government has an actual legitimate right to rule? According to Wolff, the fundamental task of political philosophy is to morally justify the existence of authority. It's not enough for a state to exist because it can maintain control. It should exist because there is a morally compelling reason for its existence. Anarchists like Zaheer reject the existence of such legitimate authority. To understand why, we must look at the concept of autonomy and how it conflicts with legitimate authority. So the fundamental assumption of moral philosophy is the concept of autonomy, the freedom to make one's own decisions, the idea that people are responsible for their own actions. Because people have reason and free will, they themselves are responsible to determine how they should act. The responsible individual understands that he and he alone is capable of being the judge of his actions and the moral constraints that guide his behavior. Therefore, if you want to be responsible for your own actions, you should be autonomous. You make the final decision about what you do. One is self-legislating in this sense. Now, it doesn't matter for an anarchist whether he agrees with laws that regulate behavior in a certain territory. The only thing that matters is that you are the one making the final decision. You are autonomous in the end. Wolff uses the example of a sinking ship. Imagine you're on a sinking ship and the captain of that ship tells you to enter the lifeboats. In this case, it may be wise to follow the advice of the captain. However, insofar as you are making that decision to enter the lifeboat, it is not a command. You are not obeying the captain. It is you who is making the final decision because you think it is wise to do so. You remain autonomous. So, now that we have these two concepts, authority and autonomy. So if we say that authority is the moral right to rule and autonomy is the refusal to be ruled, then clearly we get into conflict. If we make ourselves the author of our own decisions, then how can we be ruled by others? Why should there be any authority at all? From this conflict between authority and autonomy, anarchism seems to emerge as the only political doctrine that is consistent with the virtue of autonomy. A responsible self-legislating individual must reject prescriptive authoritative rule. We can't follow laws blindly because they are the law. This is the reason that anarchists reject authority. And it is through understanding this conflict between authority and autonomy that we can understand Zaheer's anarchism. During the Red Lotus's assassination of the Earth Queen utters the following words.
You wouldn't dare attack a queen!
Here the Earth Queen appeals to her status as a rightful ruler. In her eyes, her subjugates ought to obey her simply because of her lineage. The Queen is seen as having legitimate, prescriptive authority with the right to rule over the territory of Ba Sing Se. To Zaheer, this idea is foolish.
Maybe I forgot to mention something to you. I don't believe in queens.
Zaheer rejects the idea that anyone has legitimate authority over another. To him, it is exactly the existence of kings and queens, presidents, governments and states that stand in the way of true freedom, of true autonomy.
You think freedom is something that you can give or take on a whim. But to your people, freedom is just as essential as air.
In his ideal world, what he calls the state of nature, there are no laws, there is no authority.
True freedom can only be achieved when oppressive governments are torn down.
In Zaheer's view, true freedom and personal responsibility are compromised when we blindly follow governments and laws. Take for example Fire Lord Ozai, a ruler that Zaheer uses to illustrate the importance of freedom. Ozai claims to have the divine right to rule and cause global devastation. The point being that blindly following so-called legitimate commands from authority figures instead of considering our own moral principles can empower authorities we disagree with, leading to dire consequences. But you might say, okay, yeah, fascists like Ozai are bad, I know that. But there's a difference between fascist dictators looking for world domination and democratically elected presidents, right? Well, to Zaheer that doesn't matter. Zaheer's beliefs extend beyond dictators. It doesn't matter whether an authority figure was democratically elected or got into power via a coup d'etat. Besides Ozai, Zaheer also cites President Raiko as an example, criticizing him as a moronic president. He rejects the idea that we should obey a president's commands if we disagree with their decisions or laws. And even if we do agree with their commands, we should follow them because we think so, not because they command us to obey. Regardless of the type of government, Zaheer denies that anyone has any political obligations towards any authority at all.
Don't you think the world would be better off if leaders like them were eliminated?
The only obligation people have is to themselves and the moral constraints that guide their behavior. Only then, in a world without authority, or as Zaheer calls it, the state of nature, do we achieve true freedom. And basically everything that happens in Season 3 is guided by Zaheer and his Red Lotus members' desire to take out authoritative figures and establish full freedom. Of course, the ultimate authority figure in the world of Avatar is, well, the Avatar. The Avatar traditionally plays a role in maintaining balance and order in the world, which often involves intervening in conflicts, upholding the law and working with governments and leaders. Now again, Zaheer sees this as a form of control and restriction on individual autonomy. He believes it is foolish to put the Avatar, in this case Korra, in a position of authority, and therefore tries to take her out.
This band of brothers and sisters in anarchy are witnessing the beginning of an era of true freedom. We will forge a world without kings and queens, where a man's only allegiance is to himself and those he loves. We will return to the true balance of natural order.
Now, whether anarchism works in practice is an ongoing debate. Critics argue that getting rid of authority usually leads to power vacuums that result in the exact opposite of freedom, that is, fascist dictatorships. Which is exactly what happens in Season 4 when Kuvira takes over. But that is a topic for another video. I hope this video has shed a bit of light on the complexities of anarchism and the unique perspective that Zaheer brings to the world of fictional villains. Zaheer's quest for a world without rulers, where individuals can make their own choices, raises thought-provoking questions about the role of authority in our own lives and societies. Now, whether you agree or disagree with his beliefs, Zaheer continues to be a compelling figure and is undoubtedly one of the best characters in the Avatar universe. Thank you guys so much for watching. This video was really enjoyable to make. If you could help me out and like the video and comment for the algorithm, that would be amazing. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Have a good one. See ya.